Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down a really fascinating story from our source material about a highly unconventional way to claim a tax refund.
So let's just jump right into the core claim. The story we're looking at today revolves entirely around this one question, a question that, frankly, challenges how most of us think our tax system works.
And according to the source, this isn't just some theoretical what-if. It lays out a success story about a person, who they call a suitor, who they claim got exactly this kind of refund for the 2019 tax year. Okay, let's really dive into this.
So you're probably asking, how could that even be possible? Well, the whole basis for this extraordinary claim is rooted in a concept the source calls lawful money. It's presented as a sort of hidden key to the financial system.
And here's a really key detail in the story. The person who allegedly had this success was a complete newcomer to this specific process. And that's important because, in the narrative, it makes the whole method seem that much more accessible to anyone.
All right, the entire argument here hinges on a very specific legal theory. It's framed as a kind of hidden truth about our money, a concept it calls fraud by omission.
At the heart of it all is this idea of lawful money. The argument points to a specific U.S. code and claims it gives citizens a remedy to sidestep a debt-based currency system. You know, a right that supposedly exists, but that most people have no idea about.
And this leads us right to that core theory, fraud by omission. The argument is basically this. Because people are never taught about this so-called remedy, they're being tricked into propping up a debt-based system every single time they sign a paycheck. So this slide really breaks down the two different actions the theory presents. On one side, you have what we all do, signing a check, which it calls endorsing private credit. But on the other side, you have this proposed remedy, actively using a stamp to demand lawful money instead. Okay, so that's the theory. But what about the practice? How did this person supposedly pull it off? Let's get into the how, because the source outlines a very specific method that was allegedly followed.
Well, the process described wasn't just, filling out a single form. It was this coordinated strategy, sending the exact same information to 3 different government agencies all at the same time.
And here's that 3-pronged approach. So a copy of the tax return went to the IRS, pretty standard. But at the same time, another copy was sent directly to the U.S. Treasury, and a third copy was actually filed with a U.S. district court.
Now that court filing is the real kicker here. This wasn't some huge lawsuit. It was filed as a miscellaneous case, and the narrative explains the main goal was just to get the demand officially published on the public record.
And get this, the cost for this supposedly pivotal step, according to the story, just $47.
So, after this 3-pronged claim is submitted, everything goes quiet for several months. But then, the story takes a super dramatic and, pretty unexpected turn.
The timeline here is absolutely crucial to the story. So for months, that court case just sits there unresolved. Then, the judge officially rejects the filing. But then, and this is the wild part, just 2 days after that rejection, a full refund check allegedly arrives in the mail.
And we're not talking about a small check here. The total refund, which the narrative says also included penalties and interest for the delay, was reportedly close to $10,000.
And here is the detail that the source considers absolute proof of its theory. The check came directly from the U.S. Treasury, not the IRS. And in the speaker's view, this proves it wasn't a standard tax refund at all, but the result of that redemption demand. So you have to ask, how does the source explain this? I mean, why would the Treasury issue a refund almost immediately after a federal court rejected the whole case?
Well, the logic they offer is all about the framing. The idea is that by filing the case on and for the behalf of the United States, the suitor wasn't attacking the government, but was actually positioning the action as helping the government avoid committing that fraud by omission. And that public filing, it created a permanent record that allegedly forced the Treasury's hand.
This quote, I think, really gets right to the core of the source's belief. The speaker is completely convinced this wasn't some error or a bureaucratic fluke. They see it as a deliberate, calculated, and legally considered action by Treasury officials who knew exactly what was being demanded. So the ultimate takeaway here from the source material is that this story isn't just a one-off anomaly. It's presented as a repeatable process, a kind of blueprint that anyone can follow. And so that leaves us with the absolutely central question this whole story puts on the table. It presents this detailed, step-by-step account that seems to run completely counter to everything we know about the financial and legal system and leaves us to think about the extraordinary claim it makes.